We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Just a quick reminder to all our viewers that it's a live show and you can text in your questions via the WhatsApp. Email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv or alternatively give us a call here in the studio 0203 515 0199. Today is Wednesday and inshallah tomorrow evening will mark the 13th of Rajab, where we Shia will be collectively commemorating and celebrating the birth of our first Imam, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Here on Imam Hussein TV, we will be having special programs with the scholars to celebrate and in honor of the greatest personality after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is Imam Ali, inshallah. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'as. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Before we begin, Sheikhna, maybe a few words on Imam Ali alayhi salam, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Well, the fada'il and the merits of Imam Ali alayhi salam are huge. We cannot count his merits and fada'il and rewards. But what I can say in this short and brief time, that we have a narration which says Ali alayhi salam qasimul jannati wan nar. He divides people on the day of judgment.
Ahsant.
So for the one who followed the Imam and believed in him as Imam and vicegerent of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to go to paradise, and the one who disobeyed the Imam and even fought the Imam will order him to go to the hellfire. Qasimul jannati wan nar. His love, obedience would take the one towards the paradise, and his hatred and ignorance of the Imam's position and the wilayah over the people would drag the insan and that individual towards the hellfire. Without the wilayah, there's no paradise, no felicity, no happiness in the hereafter. Wilayah is the core in religion. All a'mal is based on the wilayah of Ali alayhi salam. Your prayers, your hajj, your fast, many of these a'mal related to the issue of the wilayah. Without the wilayah, one cannot reach the paradise. So important for a Muslim to believe in Allah and His Holy Prophet and the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam to guarantee a place in paradise. Otherwise, na'udhu billah, in hellfire.
Ahsant, well said, Sheikhna. Sheikhna, let's begin with the first question in regards to ahkam and Sharia law. One question or one opinion that comes a lot is that, Sharia law is not very popular because there's so many limitations. It doesn't give people the freedom to do as they please. Here in the West, and secular people, they always want to, go, maybe they want to take part in gambling, mixed gatherings, maybe they like to, drink alcohol and so forth. And they feel that Islam and Sharia law is a type of deterrent. It stops them from actually living their lives and giving them the freedom of choice. As Muslims, how do we respond to such claims and such premises?
Well, all these legislations and ahkam in terms of the forbiddance, such as drinking alcohol, adultery, gambling, which are all forbidden, is for the good of the people. It's for the merits and the advantage of the people. We can see today that the hospitals in the non-Muslim countries are filled with people who suffer from drinking alcohol, addicted to drinking. They have cancer, na'udhu billah, in their throat, mouth, other places of the body. Drinking, driving, many accidents, deaths, and so forth. In overall, a drink that loses your mind, that you cannot concentrate. If somebody, na'udhu billah, drinks and they are drunk, they cannot actually focus very well on their surroundings. So Allah Azza wa Jal is wise. When He says this is haram or this is wajib, He knows subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is for your goodness. So all these ahkam are for our happiness in this world and the hereafter. You can ask the one who drinks to see if he's happy when he drinks. They will actually feel regret and other pains in the next day after having the hangout and so forth. So I don't think they would be happy afterwards as a consequence. So the one should obey Allah Azza wa Jal and not to obey other humans or man-made laws. We have to follow the divinely selected rules and not the man-made rules. That's important.
I see. Well said. Shaykhna, kafara that we give, and sometimes we are instructed to give clothing to the poor people. When they ask for clothing and so forth, I mean, what sort of clothing should we give? What sort of material should be given?
Basically, it should be given something that is as per norm, muta'araf, in that city or village or country. So something like jacket, trousers, a shirt, for example, and so forth. Something that covers that individual. So you don't just give him, socks and gloves, and that's it.
Yes.
No, something to cover this individual, to clothe him.
Okay, I understand. Nice. Shaykhna, a question from one of our viewers, inshallah. Is giving loans to those who are in need encouraged in Islam? I'm assuming this is when a believing brother or sister asks for money, or can I borrow some money, with the intention of returning the money at some point.
Of course, giving loan to those individuals, the mu'mineen, mu'minat, is very encouraged in the Quranic verses and in the hadith as well. I think I've mentioned this hadith a couple of episodes ago about giving loan compared to giving charity. And I've said that the hadith says if you give charity, sadaqah, you'll be given 10 rewards. But if you give loan to somebody, you will get 18 rewards. So 8 points different from giving sadaqah, because the sadaqah will be given and you don't know the one who you gave could be someone who doesn't really need that money. Or you're just helping that individual. But the one who takes out loan, he's in need. Desperately he's in need of this loan. So, and that money will be returned back to you, and you give it to others who are in need of it. So, giving a loan is greater than giving sadaqah. There's a narration from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He states, "Whoever gives a loan to a faithful and waits until he is able to pay it back, his own wealth will grow." That's the first advantage. And the angels will pray for him until the debtor pays off his debt. So imagine, you'll get more rizq, more sustenance, and angels will pray for you. So, and the angel is ma'soom, is infallible, yes. And his dua will be answered. So let's take this opportunity and help others who are in need. Let's say a youth who wants to get married and is, let's say, 19, 20 years of age. So we try to give him, to borrow him some money to be able to buy furniture for the house and so forth. So sadaqah is good, but loan is better.
I see. Excellent. Shaykhna, when we were talking about clothes earlier on and libas and covering oneself, shorts, I mean, sometimes it can be problematic, sometimes not. Let's clarify. Can a man wear shorts coming to the knee or maybe just above the knee? I know His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sa'id Hakim, he has a fatwa. What does he say?
His Eminence mentions that it is permissible as long as it's not part of the private area of the body, which is of course forbidden to be looked at and to be visible. But he says if this causes in somehow disgrace or humiliation to that individual, because some cultures, some countries would take this as humiliation, for example, as a disgrace, for example. Or if it causes lust and temptation, then of course it is impermissible. It's not allowed.
Okay. Shaykhna, when traveling, especially for ziyarah and so forth, Umrah, Hajj, a lot of the pilgrims will come to hotels and so forth, but also people sometimes offer, their places for them to stay and so forth. If it is a situation where the pilgrims want to pay, but they're not sure how long they're going to stay for, and they agree that $20 a night and so forth, this sort of transaction, is this permissible or not?
Yeah, there's no objection to make use of this property as long as there is as the Holy Quran states, tijara and taradin. There's a mutual agreement upon paying and using this property, hiring this property. So that should be fine. Valid transaction.
What about subletting, Sheikhna? Sometimes, we have people who would rent a shop or rent a house, rent a property, and then they'll rent it further again just to make a small profit or something. Some people do this as a business or as a way of living for extra income. Islamically speaking, is this okay? Is this acceptable?
If in the contract the landlord mentions that you're not allowed to sublet or rent this property to somebody else, to a third party, for example, then of course it is not permissible. You have to get the consent of the landlord in order to sublet this property, otherwise you can't.
Sheikhna, for our female sisters and our ladies in the community, after the haid, the menstruation cycle period, are they allowed to have personal relations, physical relations with their husbands, or do they have to perform ghusl or not? Now, His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir Najafi, he comments on this. What's his opinion?
He says, yes, it is permissible after washing the place of the blood, making tahir, before ghusl, yes, you're allowed. However, Ayatollah Shirazi mentions that as a mustahab precaution, not wajib, but mustahab, more desirable, that the one refrains from intercourse before the ghusl, before washing. So let her wash first, become purified from this monthly cycle, and then the man or the husband can actually approach her in this situation.
I see. I think it's actually recommended as well for every time you approach to be in tahara, to be pure, rather than to be najis and so forth. Sheikhna, with venture capital, and if there's someone owning a business, and as you are well aware, sometimes businesses are in profit, sometimes they're in loss. Now, when a business is in loss, but it's no fault of the staff members or the manager or so forth, are any of them actually liable to the owner of the business?
If the manager wasn't negligent in handling the transaction or protecting the transaction and so forth, then there's nothing obligation on this individual. So he did his best in investment, in selling and buying, but things happened out of his control. Let's say the pandemic, for example, was the reason. They have to close for a couple of months, for example.
I see. Sheikhna, we're going to go to a short break. Join us after the break, inshallah. We'll be continuing our discussion here on Ahkam SOS. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show. We do take in your questions. If you have any question you'd like to ask, now the question can be on any topic. There's nothing too silly or too taboo. Any question you have, send it in via the WhatsApp. The email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or alternatively give us a call on 0203 515 0199. Inshallah, me and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer all of your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sheikhna, before the break, we were discussing on Islamic law, and you were talking a bit about alcohol and how it can have damaging and detrimental effects to a society. However, there are plenty of religions, including religions of Ahl Kitab, that allow the consumption of alcohol, and these religions also, they claim to be divine, and religions take you towards God and piety and so forth. So why is it that Islam is a religion that doesn't accept alcohol?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's take a hadith or a narration and a holy verse from the Quran. So in the sermon of Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha, the Fadak sermon, the famous sermon that she spoke out against the usurpers of the Khilafah, she brought lines of the reasons of the ahkam. Why is it salah wajib? Why is it, let's say, fasting is wajib, and so forth? And why is it that Allah made the drink of wine or alcohol forbidden? She stated, salamullah alayha, in her khutbah, وَالنَّهْيَ عَنْ شَرْبِ الْخَمْرِ تَنْزِيهًا عَنَ الرِّجْسِ. And Allah made or forbid the drink of wine to cleansing from filthiness. Yani in other words, alcohol and wine is filth in the statements of the holy Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the Quran as well.
So yeah, it's true, because when they make it, it's actually the rotting of the fruit that actually expels and actually produces the alcohol. So yeah, you're actually right, it's filth.
And in the Holy Quran, Surah number 5, Ayah 90, Allah states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِنَّ الْخَمْرَ وَالْمَيْسِرَ وَالْأَنصَابَ وَالْأَزْلَامَ رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Intoxicants, gambling, idols, arrows for seeking luck are a wrongdoing of Satan's handiwork. So avoid that. So we can see that when Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us this is wrongdoing, this is Satan's handiwork, this is filth, in the hadith, filthiness, we have to abide by the words of Allah and His reps and the vicegerents. So again, as I've said before, that for the benefit of the human beings, refraining from drinking alcohol would give us happiness in this world and in the hereafter. It's like drugs. If you take drugs, then you lose your dunya and akhirah both.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Shaykh. A question from one of our viewers, inshallah. Does the transfer of money into the accounts of an individual constitute possession of the money, and therefore it is subject to the ruling of the money in possession?
Well, if the money is paid into the account of that individual and they can retrieve the money, they can withdraw from the cash machine, then khalas, it's their money. You can't do anything.
Okay.
It's theirs, in their position.
Shaykhna, is it permissible to swear in the course of the transaction even one is saying the truth?
In overall, to swear by Allah Azza wa Jal, for example, is makruh. Be it the transaction is a true transaction. You want to prove a haqq. You say by Allah, this table is, for example, I bought it this much, for example, and I'm selling this much, which is makruh. And if you say it, if you lie, then it's haram, of course. You're lying, you're deceiving, you're cheating in selling and buying. This is a hadith from Imam Amir al-Mu'minin Ali alayhi salam. He states, he says, bi'u wa la tahlifu. Sell, but do not swear by Allah Azza wa Jal. فَإِنَّ الْيَمِينَ, the result or the consequence of swearing to Allah, the qasam, to Allah Azza wa Jal, for just selling a book, let's say. You won't say, oh, by Allah, this book is this much. I bought it this much, for example. I'm making so much small profit out of this. And I've seen this. I don't make much profit of it. بِيعُوا وَلَا تَحْلِفُوا. Sell, but do not do qasam or swear to Allah Azza wa Jal. فَإِنَّ الْيَمِينَ, indeed swearing, تُنْفِقُ السِّلْعَةِ, it will ruin or remove or destroy the goods, the product. You've seen, I'm sure, many shops when they, I've seen, for example, shops burning as a result of electricity shock and so forth. Fire or flood, for example. Once I went to a big bookshop and they had a flood in their storage. So all the brand new books were floating on the water as a result of flood. So this is the result of the qasam in selling and buying, that your products, your items, your goods will be destroyed in somehow. وَتَمْحَقُ الْبَرَكَةِ, and it will repel the blessing, it will take away the blessing from this individual. So you don't see barakah in your money, in your life, ala kulli hal, because of the qasam. I've seen, sadly, some of the merchants, he talks to the customer, he says, Wallahi billahi. You don't need to do such a, especially the shar'i qasam, billah, wallahi,
Yes,
billahi, tallahi.
yeah.
Proper shar'i qasam. You don't need, just because he's selling, a few products and making small profits. For such a small profit, you want to make, bring Allah Azza wa Jal for this cause and use the qasam. So the one should avoid it. It's makruh, no problem.
I see. Shaykh, a question from one of our viewers. During work, there is wet contact between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. So what is the ruling for salah if the non-Muslim touches the tahir clothes of a Muslim after wudu?
Well, if the contact is wet, let's say they shook hand and both hands become wet and moisture, then it is mandatory to make it tahir and wash your hand before the wudu. Let's say you touch your clothes, you take off your socks while your hand is wet after shaking hand with that non-Muslim, for example, as a precaution, of course. But as I've said before, that some ulama would consider the Ahlul Kitab are tahir,
Yeah.
so there's no issue with it. But non-Ahlul Kitab, all ulama agree upon the fact that they are najis, so you have to avoid them. So it depends really on number one, which marja you follow. Number two, are they Ahlul Kitab or non-Ahlul Kitab? So the hukum depends really.
Talking about Ahlul Kitab, are we allowed to actually visit the houses of the Ahlul Kitab and eat from them? His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, he has a fatwa on this. What does he say?
He says if you eat and drink from the food they prepare, let's say it's a meaty food, it's a fatty food, and animal products and so forth, then of course, the animal products are non-halal animals, slaughtered in the non-halal way, then of course it's not permissible. Otherwise, if one just eats, let's say, cakes,
food,
vegetarian, fruits, that's fine, no issue with it.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Sheikh, now, what does shubha or erroneous marriage mean?
We have something called unintended haram. Sometimes it happens that someone gets married to someone and he doesn't know if that individual is halal to him or haram to him.
I see.
So the scenario which is given in the book of the Masail, that Muslim woman gets married to, as I've said, unintentionally, out of ignorance, jahl. A Muslim woman gets married to a non-Muslim man, and that's haram in Islam.
Obviously.
A Muslim woman cannot get married to a non-Muslim man. So in this situation, if she now becomes aware of the hukum that it's haram to marry, she must immediately separate from this man.
Okay.
That's number one. And of course, this is known as what a shubha. It means that she had a shubha intercourse or shubha relationship with this man. And of course, the children would be also as shubha children. So they're neither illegitimate and neither they're legitimate. So it's something in the middle, shubha. Because it wasn't intended to do so.
Yes.
Otherwise it's going to be zina and na'udhu billah. Other ahkam on it.
Understandable. Sheikh, a question from one of our viewers. Is it permissible for a man to marry the nieces of his wife without her permission?
It is not permissible unless he gets the permission from his wife. But if he made the aqd and then he told her afterwards and she gave the consent, then that aqd is valid, that's fine.
Okay. And finally, for our last question, another one from the viewers. Is it sufficient if there is widespread knowledge that the fish is caught using common permissible means?
If one is certain about how, let's say, the place that he lives in, let's say America, Europe, Asia, that the way they catch the fish, he's certain that they catch the fish in this way. That's what we see on TV, documentaries, sometimes even in the news, that they take out the net from the sea and they place the fish inside the boat, and the fish dies inside the boat, then khalas, that's halal. And as I said before, for catching the fish, you don't need to be, the hunter shouldn't be a Muslim.
Yes.
Anyone can
Catch fish.
catch the fish, Muslim or non-Muslim.
Ahsan.
Unlike the slaughtering of sheep or chicken and such
yeah,
like.
just to be a Muslim man. Thank you very much, Shaykhna, for all your efforts and your research. I know you go through a lot. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Inshallah, we'll be back next week with another live show. If you have any questions that you'd like to send in, send it via the WhatsApp, the email address, or call us next time, 0203 515 0199, next time on Ahkam SOS. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Please, stay safe. Enjoying the celebrations of the birth of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and please tune into Imam Hussein TV for all our special broadcasting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.